Hey, what's going on, everybody? How y'all doing today?
What's happening?
What's going on, Axe? What's up? What's good with you?
Not much, man. Just another day, another topic. We got some
Yeah,
some crazy ones we've been covering today.
we do.
Let's get into this one.
So let's get in this one. So we were talking about before we got on screen. We're just kind of talking about some of the people we know and kids are thinking about joining the military themselves. And kind of brought us to talk about you see on the news a lot. That the services are having problems. Getting people to join and this and that. So what me and Axe did was like, yo, let's kind of see what some of the reasons are. People saying that they don't want to join, and some of the stuff we found was kind of crazy, right?
Blew
So
my mind. Blew my
let me
mind.
let me get it up here for us. Boom. Can you see that? Okay, all good.
Yep. All
Okay,
good.
so here we go. So top 10 reasons selected by surveyed youth when asked what would be the main reason or reasons you would not consider joining the military. This is as of 2022. This is a Department of Defense, so this is all branches they're asking for, and they're asking kids from age 16 to 21, and this is the latest and greatest. So for those that don't know, recruiting goes fiscal year to fiscal year. So 2024 won't end until October of this year. So this is kind of like the latest and greatest to have. But we'll just start from the top. Axe, you want to go first and tell me what you think, like what you would think if you were that age? You know, was this a thing that you thought about or what?
Yeah. Possibility of physical injury or death. Yeah. That's like the first thing people think of when you're a kid and you're thinking about joining one of the services. You're like, oh man, we're at. It depends on when it is, right? The time frame, because
Yeah,
if whether we were at war or not, like how we currently felt. And for me, in '99, I mean, personally, there wasn't much going on. I joined for other reasons, um, but I mean, that's definitely. I don't think it matters what service you're in. There's always a possibility, and obviously, some branches, um, you know, they have a higher percentage of the likelihood, right?
yeah,
Depending on your job and what you choose to do.
yeah. No, I
Um,
agree totally.
but then again, if you're choosing to serve your country and you're serving and you're choosing to do it for the right reasons, you're gonna look past that because that's part of why you're joining. You're willing to die for your country. It's part of the oath you take. Yes, there's always a possibility, right? And
Yeah,
which should be a motivator for people to be like, look, I want to be the best at what I do
yep,
because I don't care what it is. Like there's a point in time where I could be facing pulling that trigger, and if I'm not prepared for that, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. But as a kid, you don't think that far. You got
yeah,
the grown ups telling you that
yeah,
possibly we're at war, man. You might die. You might go to Iraq. Oh shit,
yes,
like
yeah.
that's always that's the biggest problem with making that decision is, dude, I don't want to die. I'm 17, 18 years old, man.
That's a good point, and I would say the same as you. Like when we joined, it's possible. You always know, like in the military, yeah, you could deploy, but Iraq, Afghanistan, all stuff wasn't a thing. What we remembered when we were kids was Desert Storm, and that was, the war was 36 hours total, and it was done. So that wasn't like a huge deal. But obviously, with the wars that have happened, and all the young men and women that gave their lives for a cause and a belief, I think that's very pertinent. Especially if you look at the news now. Just recently, remember with the Afghanistan withdrawal. So a lot of the kids now that did not weren't alive when September 11th happened, and that saw like, hey, this is what real combat's like. That suicide bomber killed 13 Marines and a whole bunch of civilians in that. So it's definitely a much more prevalent reason now than it was, say 20, 22 years ago.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Gulf War. Like, what was the decisive victory for us in the Gulf War?
It was eradicating Iraq out of Kuwait. That was it.
Through
Through Kuwait.
No, I mean, but like, how did we do it?
Oh, air power in the probably one of, well, not the largest, but one of the largest ground combat forces that had been assembled. Uh,
Air power. Sorry,
air
go ahead.
power, air power for sure. You were fishing me to it. I finally got there. I
I
eventually
was
got there.
trolling you, man. I
I
was
know, I
trying to get.
know. I was trying to. It took me a minute. I was like, let's do quick, but okay. All right, so I'll go on the next one. Possibility of PTSD or other emotional psychological issues. I would say this is a very, 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 very big reason. I would say for a couple. If you look at a lot of the stigmas across the military right now, what's the number one stigma people think about especially for those that are deployed?
Mental health.
Mental health. They got something wrong with them. You see in a lot of movies now with military members, there's always some kind of PTSD issue to have. Always. Like think about all our military movies, you know?
It's either we're all special ops or we're all snapping for some reason.
Yeah. And there's a stigma to it. There's definitely a stigma to it, you know, and your average kid, you know, doesn't want to deal with that. Like I'm living a good life here at home, you know, mom or dad's cooking breakfast and
comfortable.
I'm doing this. Like I don't want to be messed up mentally for the rest of my life, you know? And I would also say the other thing too is there's still a stigma within the military itself about mental health. Yes, there's, you know, the military has made leaps and bounds to what it was, you know, gosh, years ago, you know. I could say personally from my experience, my first deployment was in 2004, and the mental health we had then as compared to now in 2024 is night and day. But I also think that a lot of people that are in the military say that to their families and stuff like, hey, I can't go say this, I can't go say that, or I may not be able to, you know, deploy or get this job or do that. And I think that plays a part, man. You know, what do you think?
I didn't catch that last part.
I was just saying, you know, like a stigma within the military. Obviously, you're you know, you have air power background, but I think a lot of the younger kids now, they still have a sick stigma of that because there's still a lot of old heads in the military. And hey, mental health, you don't do mental health if you want to get promoted or if you want to get certain jobs. And if you do, you're going to miss out on this job or this opportunity. Yeah. And they tell other people, you know, and people hear that like, well, shoot, I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to like not get treated because I want to get a certain job or promoted and stuff, you know?
I mean, but even nowadays, like at almost every briefing you go to when you arrive new to a unit, you're going to process through some advocate or somebody from mental health. And they're going to tell you, look, there's no stigma. Yep. It's not going to hurt your career. You know, they tell you that up front every single time, at least for me, for the most part. I remember when I got to a new location, I was connected with all the resources. And that's one of the things they tell you is it's not going to hurt your career. It's not going to hurt your career, which it's not. However, it can impact certain requirements that you have that make you qualify to fulfill your MOS. Mm-hmm. And if non-deployable due to you being coded for being in a mental health rehabilitation program, you can't do certain things because you're coded for this. That kind of hinders your ability to do your job, which in turn hinders your ability to promote, which in turn hinders your career. So I can connect the dots and see it. But definitely. I can also see how they say they don't want that to be a deterrence to get people to come through the door to seek help with fear of it impacting their career, because the career is not what's important. Your mental health is what's important. Come seek mental health first. Get your head right. And if your career is affected and you're not in the service anymore, at least you got your head right, dude. You know, like that's to me is what's important. But I know a lot of people have nothing else. Like they don't see something else on the other side of that fence, and their career is all they got, man. And they're
especially when they're young.
Especially when you're young, you know.
Yeah, especially when you're young. Like that. Yeah, and it's tough, you know. I mean, I can speak from experience. It took me 3 deployments before I finally, you know, and it wasn't even me wanting to go. My wife was like, either go or we're going to have problems at home, you know, and that's what made me finally go. But as to, like you said, there's certain medications too, that if you get on, you're non-deployable, you're not going anywhere. And that's going to limit your promotion abilities, you know, or special assignments that you could normally do that you can't do now because you have to have this medication or whatever, you know? And also, like I said, what do you think of the stigma across the country? You think that's a valid point, or you think I'm off on that one with just the stigma kind of across the country with movies and what you hear about?
Yeah,
you know, veterans?
It's definitely portrayed out in public media. You know, a lot of great movies, by the way, but it definitely portrayed the service member as weak, less than, you know, someone who's coming to leech off of a civilian systems, you know.
Yeah.
Like, and you're showing up with all these problems. You're going to need all these mental issues. Like, are you going to be able to get a regular job when you get out? You know, like we're not all broken to
Yeah.
that extent. Like there are some veterans out here who are 100% disabled who are still kicking ass and taking names and still doing a job better than most.
And that's, think about it too, man. You know, like the military trains you to do a whole bunch of stuff, but they don't train you how to react to like combat. And when I say combat, like the after effects of combat, getting shot at, shooting somebody, seeing somebody pass away or get injured, be it enemy or your friend to your left and right, or hearing, hey, one of my friends has, you know, just got, you know, maimed or killed and stuff. And that's super, super hard to process, man, and do that kind
And
of thing.
everyone is different.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Some people, you know, take it differently than others for sure. But we'll move on from this one. I think that
Yep.
we kind of made our point
About
on
the just to real quick wrap it up for
yeah,
me.
go ahead.
I feel like it should be part of the possibility of physical injury or death. Like to me, if you go through any of that, you're probably going to have some type of PTSD from it. So if you're any situation where you're afraid for your life, that, you know, this is like a subcategory of the first one. It's just, you know, kind of where it fits.
No, yeah. And like you said, there's a lot of people that, you know, go through this and still kick ass. You know, like me personally, I have PTSD. I take medications for it, but you just gotta, you know, drive on and you know, do things that make you happy. And, you know, obviously you're gonna have good days, bad days, but I don't, I would hope that's not a deterrent for a lot of young people, especially because there's so many good things the military can do for you, you know. And there are combat, but you know, look at the last, you know, history of the military. You know, there's wars like every 10-15 years, but it's a toughie, you know.
Also, PTSD is not just a war thing. You get
Absolutely.
PTSD from car accidents. You get PTSD from
Getting
just
jumped or
accidents at work.
yep,
You know,
yep.
seeing a kid drown, like deaths,
Absolutely.
family
It's a good
members.
point. It's a good point.
PTSD is not just a
Good
military
point.
thing. So,
Absolutely. What do you think about the leaving family and friends, man? What do you think about that one?
man, that's an unfortunate given, man. Like,
It
you
is.
know, in order for you to receive uh, a skill that only the military can provide, you have to leave home. You got to go elsewhere. You have to leave your state. You can only go to a certain place, and depending on which service you sign up for. Like, it is a very specific, unless you're joining the reserves to where, you know, you go to basic and then you go right back to your home state or the guard.
Mhm.
You know, you're typically expected to be gone for a certain amount of time to fulfill a service commitment at a specific location that's out of your control. For the most part, you have a wish list, but outside of that, man, you're leaving home. You
And
know,
it's a hard sell. It's such a hard sell. When I was a recruiter, and everywhere you recruit's different. You know, every state's different, but
depends on who you are too.
yeah, where I was at, that's probably the hardest thing to convince people joining was, you know, you do get vacation days to come home and stuff like that, but it's twice a year maybe if you're
If
lucky,
I
you
live
know.
near the beach and I don't want to leave. You
Yeah.
know,
But you know, like you said though, it's a hard commitment to get somebody to
yeah.
commit like, hey, you know, I'm gonna leave, I'm gonna be gone for 2 years, and I'm gonna come home probably two times the first year, two times the second year, and that'll be it. And a lot of younger kids when I was recruiting, they were worried about life passing them on. You know, their friends are getting married and doing this, and you know, you miss, you know, all kinds of stuff. But it kind of ties into some other the other areas. I think other career interests. What do you think, man?
The first thing I want to do is leave.
Yeah, yeah,
Like me, it was the opposite. Like I was part of the percentage that was like, bye. You know what I mean? There was nothing there for me
yeah,
outside
yeah.
of the people I loved. You know what I mean? Like that was it, man. I had to go live and do something on my own. So I was part of that, you know, 42%.
Yeah, like me, I was pretty much on my own anyway from the age of like 10. So leaving was not a deal to me at all. You know, I was actually more worried about not failing, you know, training and stuff. The leaving part was easy. I was like, yeah, I'm good. Deuces, you know. Um, Other career interests is at 46%. I don't know. What do you think on that one, man?
Um, yeah, I mean, I can see why I would have guessed around 50% myself because
Really? Okay.
there's so much out here to do outside of your typical military MOS or career field or AFSC. But on the flip side of that, every job you can think of is probably within the services, because we are the installation is required to be a self-sustaining environment. We need to have our own. Granted, some hospitals have been dumbed down to clinics.
Yeah.
Depending on the relationship to them in an actual hospital outside of base. But
do you think it's a bad you think it's bad on DoD not advertising like all the different jobs that the military has? Like there's so many, like you said, you can find any job you want in one of the branches, anything like vet, firefighter.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have commercials long enough, man.
Yeah.
They really just talk about services.
Fighting.
Yeah, well, it's services to, they show the people who are in the DFACs, right? They show the folks with the smiles and serving food. You'll get that picture, but you're going to hear and see a video of a jet flying by, somebody responding on the ground, like a video game. Like I get to play Call of Duty.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or air traffic controller. Oh, I get to control the jets, but I'm in safety. I'm in the safety of an airport. That's awesome. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's an actual job, which is probably one of the better jobs you can get in the Air Force because you can get out super quick and get a great job in the civilian world. But to me, that's a huge thing. If I can't gain a skill, it's a big thing to me now. If I can't gain a skill somewhere that's going to help me somewhere else, I probably shouldn't do that unless that's all I plan on doing for the rest of my life.
Yeah. And most kids that get in, that's not even a thought process. No. I agree with you. I think the Army's recruiting commercial, it's a radio repairman, it's a admin, it's a cook, and the way they present it is just not very conducive, I think, to the younger kids. You know what I mean? They show them in the field in their kit and stuff like that. Like, I really think they should show something like what you really see. They'd be in an office at work working on radios and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it's not all that, So I think, like you said, the commercial not long enough, and I think they should do a little more outreach with that. But it's hard to get kids to even come talk to you as a recruiter, like we're talking about off screen, just to get up and come talk to you about it. And then you can explain to them, hey, look, like, this is what you would actually do on a daily to day basis. And that was one of the things I used to say when I was a recruiter, especially the deployments. Like, hey, look, man, like, yes, you can deploy, you can get shot, you can get killed, but this would be your primary job if you went there. Like, you wouldn't be one of the guys you see kicking doors down, stuff like that. You'd be at the base, making sure everything's working at the base that all those guys are going to come back to and stuff, So
I was told I was going to support the pilots directly, like in Top Gun when they're getting suited up.
Yeah.
I was going to be there with them, which was true. I was at a unit, and when the pilots came in to grab their gear and their helmets, they'd play like Top Gun type music or music that they would like. Typically, it's some kind of rock or metal. And so that was true, but like that was like the coolest part of it all. They didn't really tell you what the bullshit was of it,
Oh yeah, and we could do a whole video on that on another video, like of what you think you're going to get into and then what you actually get when you get there. You know what I mean? All right, next one. Too long of a commitment. I don't know about that one. What do you think, man?
I think too short of a commitment is not really a thing.
Yeah.
At least from what I know. Meaning like 2 years or less. Like,
yeah,
I think 4 years is standard, unless there's a specific reason why they're hiring you in for a reserve position or something. Or I haven't heard of one.
Same. Unless it's one of those very specialized jobs, like you said. But I think at that age, younger people are thinking like, man, this will be forever. It kind of goes back to leaving family and friends, like we were talking about earlier. Like, gosh, I'm gonna have to leave for 2 years or 4 years or wherever, and I'm gonna miss all this stuff, and it's gonna be so different. I think that's one of the drawbacks. So I think it's kind of tied into the leaving family and friends.
COVID was what, 2 years, and that felt like forever.
Yes, it did.
So I can see a kid being like, dude, I'll be gone for 4 years. That's like COVID twice.
Yeah, man, that's such a good point. Actually, I didn't even think about it like that. That's a good point.
I told you I'm a fucking kid at heart.
Like, God, I'm gonna be gone forever. There's no way I'm doing this shit.
I was supposed to retire before COVID. I
Yeah,
was
I
supposed to
know.
retire, and COVID fucked it all up.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not gonna. I don't think I could add anything. That's a pretty good nail in the coffin on that one, buddy. I like that one. That's a good one. Okay. Possibility of interference with college education. I think is a very valid point right here because if you ask your average person in the military, it's super hard to do college while you're in. It is so hard to be able to like get any kind of schedule, do classes because you have schools that come up, you have field training, you have deployments, and you have your own job, which is a full-time gig that you're doing, and you're getting off late or going in early or something like that. So I could definitely see that, at least with the Army, they always say, hey, we pay 100% tuition when you're in. They pay $4,500 a year for you to go to college. So it's 4 semesters you could do. But man, it takes forever to get your college degree. It is so hard, in certain MOSs. I'm not gonna say all of them, but like certain jobs, like my job I did, it took me like 12 years to get an associate's degree. And I was grinding, for years and years trying to do it. So I think that's a valid one. I think that's a very, very valid one. Now, some of the services have done stuff to help. The Army, for instance, does a 6-month program where you can go to college for 6 months straight. And then you go back to work, but it's only 6 months. You're not getting a degree out of that, and in the Army right now, they want everyone to have degrees. Like that is the hotness. Like you have to have a degree to get promoted up in the senior ranks,
Yeah.
So I think that's a valid one. What are your thoughts, man, from where you did in the Air Force and that?
So, for sure. I was right there with you, man. It took me just about that long to get my associate's degree, mainly because, you're the first 4 years of your career, man, you're in so much training, so much development, and you're learning so much. And at the same time, you're trying to stand out. So you're doing all this extra stuff, right? And yes, part of it should be PME, part of it should be college, but you're fitting that into everything else. And maybe you can squeak out a class here and there, but to finish a degree, you're doing it with half the time. You just don't have it. You're doing a full-time job, and that full-time job is 24/7. But they don't lie in the commercials. If the Army says they provide 100% tuition, they provide 100% tuition. Whether you get to use it or not, that's up to you and the job you choose, and or how good you want to be at your job.
Absolutely.
I get master's degrees, but they were terrible at doing their job. They were terrible at leading people. I think I said it before.
No, I agree totally. And you're retired. I'm about to retire, and there's a lot of people I know 20 plus years now do not even have their associates yet. They're giving their life for their country to their service, and they're about to retire. Which, retiring in the military is great. You're going to get some benefits, but you still have to go out and work to make money, and then you have to look at how marketable am I without a college degree compared to these kids that are, applying for the same jobs that just came out of 4-year college, So,
not even that. Now you can stay in the Air Force as a staff sergeant, as an E5, and not have a degree because you kind of need a degree to become a, but that's not your aspiration. And so you're going to stay in long enough to retire as a staff sergeant, and you're really leaving with nothing.
Yeah.
That's the Air Force is okay with that. They're okay with having people who don't aspire to be or to have a degree because they're content with their current lifestyle and what they're doing now.
I agree.
Those are people who just come in and clock in 9 to 5. They turn the screws, they do the job, and they go home. You're not going to get much more out of them,
Yeah. Yeah.
So, if I don't have time to do school, I'm gonna make time to do school, and then my job is gonna suffer.
Yeah, absolutely. And it ties into promotions and other stuff, no, I totally agree.
I can talk about that all day.
Oh yeah, me too. All right, next one. Required to live in places I don't want to live in. That's a fair one. That's definitely a fair one. But it's man, you could travel all over the world, man, and see shit. Now, there have been places that I've lived that I'd never wanted to live there or deployed to. I would never, ever go to. But I mean, shoot, I was 21, and I already lived in like 4 states, been overseas. Like I thought it was cool, man. I enjoyed that getting to travel because I would have never been able to travel had I not been in the military, you know?
Yeah. So I mean, some people are luckier than others. You know,
Yeah.
some people have had terrible assignments,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's unfortunately it's part of it's luck, part of it's it's all timing, all of it's timing, um, and then just making sure you got the right credentials. You know, the more credentials you have, the more you open yourself up for opportunities. And then there's a flip side of that is the more you move up in rank, the less locations you have to choose from.
Mhm.
So it's like, man, if do I want to promote? Well, I have to go to all these shitty locations because that's the only spots that have my position opened up.
Yep.
Uh, depending on your job, so it kind of all depends. I've
And
known
yeah, at certain
people.
bases.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say just a real quick add on what you're saying. Certain jobs, like my job, there's only like 6 bases in the Army I can go to until I'm a senior. And then once you're senior, then it opens up some. But the first 10, 11 years, there's 1 of 5 spots you're going. And there's some jobs that there's only 3 bases in the entire Army you can go to. So it's one, it's
Yep.
one of those 3 every, and it's like rinse, cycle, repeat. So yeah,
Yep.
no, definitely.
I know people who've come in and went from Hawaii to Vegas to Tampa, back to Vegas, and then now they're in they're still in Vegas, matter of fact. Like, so all these great assignments.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
how lucky is that? And then you got other people who were in Offutt, Nebraska, Grand Forks, North Dakota, like just in the armpits of the US,
Yes.
embracing the suck.
Yeah.
So
I've had a lot of friends like that. I had one Germany, Hawaii, Alaska, Germany, or I'm sorry, Hawaii again, then to Germany, then to El Paso, back to Germany. It's like, God, who
that
didn't
El
know?
Paso one was a shit one though.
Oh God. Yeah. Yeah. I don't talk about it. But all right, next one. Don't believe I will qualify. I kind of we were talking about off screen, man. Go ahead and say what you were saying. I thought that was a good point that you had, man.
I don't even know why it's on here, to be honest. Like, don't
Yeah.
believe I would qualify. That's the whole purpose of walking through that door, is to find out if you have what it takes to join the service. Depending on which one it is, you may want to shrink your expectations a bit of your lifestyle, and you may say, hey, I got to go embrace the suck and join the Army, because you just didn't put that much effort into school. You know what I'm saying? Or that's just where most of your skills lean towards. Like, dude, you have no admin skills, you got none of this. All your skills are mechanic, and you're like, all right, the Army will take you as a mechanic. It kind of all depends, man. But I don't know, man. You don't know until you go in and take the test, take the ASVAB, find out.
Or even just go talk to them and just find out
Yeah.
info. It's like
what's it gonna hurt?
Yeah, it's like going to get a car. You don't know anything about the car until you go look at it. You don't mean you have to buy it, but you have to go look at it and see, like, hey,
Same thing I told my son. I was like, he was like, he asked, hey, Dad, what do you think if I join? I was like, great idea. Is it plan A, B, C, D, E, or F?
Mm-hmm.
And when he was younger, it was like D.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So before joining the service, no matter where you put it in order, before should be get your degree, so that when you do join the service, it's to a higher echelon than somebody else in your family. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And always do better, always level up. And that's what I told him. And he went and got his degree, did everything I set him off to do, did everything that I expected him to do. And now he's trying to make some decisions. And I think one of them might be, and even if it's in a reserve capacity, to stay in the area or whatnot, I don't know. But I think he might be, leaning into joining the services. So I tell him the same thing.
But I think
you don't know until you walk in and you see what they have to offer.
And he's prepared better too, definitely, with what I mean? Like, it's not he has to do it, like he's got his degree first, which, like you said, that's such an important thing, especially if he gets in the military or not,
Yeah, and if you have those questions and you don't trust a recruiter, look in your family, find out who served, find out who went. Ask your friends, hey, you got anybody who's joined the service? Like, look around, ask people. You know,
Yeah.
don't always listen to the propaganda and the commercials and all that other crap.
Or
Like, just ask
TV
somebody,
or Twitter
you
or
know?
some shit. Yeah, definitely. Ask somebody
Yeah.
who's been there, done it. Yeah, absolutely.
Same way you
Absolutely.
go on to find somebody who's worked at AT&T to get a job. You go on LinkedIn, you find a veteran on LinkedIn and start asking the questions. Hey, we're from the same hometown. How'd you get out of here? What'd you do when you joined? What was your process? Like, you did 20 years. Holy crap. Like, network the same way you would to any other job. Ask the
Definitely.
questions. You know, if you
Definitely.
don't believe, ask the questions.
Definitely. I like it. All right, last one. Possibility of sexual harassment and assault, which is at 33%.
I'm surprised this is on here based off of the other inputs. You know,
Mhm.
don't believe I would qualify. To me, that's kind of a silly one to be
Yeah.
on here. And
Yeah.
then they're going to go as far as putting out a statistic like this as serious for something as serious as sexual harassment and assault. Granted, with everything going on, like you said, it's definitely top of mind.
Yep.
Am I surprised of the number? I thought it'd be I thought it'd be a larger percentage, to be honest.
Mhm.
Um, and as of late, it's been top of mind. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's always granted in every job, in every office space, in every environment, there's always a possibility of sexual harassment and assault as long as you're dealing with another human being. Some animals get crazy too, but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like, you know, like you can find this anywhere. It's more prevalent in the services, probably because it's might be male dominated environment, hostile type environment, A type personality, you know, like high endurance. Not that any of those are excuses, but I can see why the possibilities there.
Yeah. And it's something that we had talked about off screen, but I also mentioned that it's much more advertised out as compared to other institutions. You know, the thing I'd said earlier is you don't see colleges having to release their reports and stuff, and they're not going to testify before Congress. You know, the military's got to do that. You know, all the branches have to report to Congress and, hey, this is what we're doing to prevent, you know, harassment and assault, and this is how many cases we've had. And there's been a whole bunch of dialogue on the Hill about should the military handle it or should be civilians handle it, you know, that kind of thing. So also, I think that brings much more light and attention to it versus other, like I said, institutions that don't have to report it. They might put out on the internet, you know, or something like that, but it's not out on TV where you can see it on like the news at night. Like, hey, Army Chief of Staff said this, or the Navy Secretary of the Navy said this. And so I think that kind of helps, not helps, but that makes it much more pertinent in people's minds as compared to,
It
I wonder
highlights
what this,
it.
huh?
It highlights it
Yeah.
more.
And I wonder how much has changed from, like, let's say 10 years ago or 20 years ago to what it is now. I mean, because the Army, we have the biggest case ever. You know, we have the whole Fort Hood incident with that young lady, you know, and was a whole entire thing that they did, an investigation, and a lot of people got relieved. And it was reported on for weeks and weeks and
This
weeks
was
and weeks.
the homicide, right? This wasn't just sexual harassment or assault. This was
Yeah, so it started as harassment, and then it didn't get adjudicated correctly, and it grew from there. And the young lady unfortunately was murdered and put into a case, and a lot of mistakes, a lot of stuff was done wrong. I mean, obviously tons of things were done wrong, but again, it was all over the news forever versus other places where they wouldn't report that much. But I think because the military is held to such a different standard, that of course people are going to pay more attention to it. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
but here we go. I'm gonna stop sharing this. I'm gonna just